Hello, listeners. Does listening to this podcast make you think, hey, I'd like to make my own podcast, but you're not sure how to go about it? Well, you could always use our sponsor, Anchor. You could go to anchor.fm or to the App Store on whatever phone you're using and just get everything that you need to start your own podcast, from easy monetization to the ability to record your podcast directly through the app or on the website, or the ability to monetize and get paid pretty much immediately. So if you want to do that, go ahead and go to anchor.fm or search Anchor in the App Store on your phone. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fill in the Blank podcast. This week is going to be a little bit different. Instead of taking a movie that has a plot hole and trying to fill it, we're actually going to fill in the blank between two movies that have the same lead actor and trying to bridge the gap as to why they share the same universe. So I think this is going to be fun. And I think it's just going to be interesting. So, who wants to go first?
Let's all not raise our hands at once.
Actually, I'll go first because I don't want to be railed again like I have in previous episodes.
You don't want to go last and be like, well, crap.
No, yeah. Mine's going to be fairly easy, but I've also got a bunch of different ones that kind of don't fall in topic, so we may talk about those at the end. But my biggest one, and hopefully I don't steal somebody else's thunder, but so do we want to talk about the lead actor that we're doing first, or just the movies?
Just tell us what movies you're connecting, and then just tell us why you think that they're connected.
Okay, well, this one's going to be pretty easy. Most people will get this one. But Trading Places and Coming to America are my two movies. The lead actor, obviously, is Eddie Murphy, that was in both movies. And honestly, the main reason I tie them is because the Duke brothers from Trading Places are actually in Coming to America as homeless men that Akeem gives a wad of bills to in the movie. And after counting it, one of them claims to the other one, Mortimer, we're back. So this one's actually kind of an easy tie-in, as they're tied in the same universe, in my opinion. But I don't know what else we want to talk about in terms of, do we want to talk about like the main premises behind the movies or anything, or is that kind of...
That's up to you, because I mean, that was pretty solid. Like, yeah, it's like the connection's kind of made for you in the movies.
Yeah, I mean that's why, it was funny because I took a while to actually come up with that one, and then I think we were watching Coming to America or something like that, and it kind of went, oh shit, there's the one I want to pick, and that's why I was saying it was so easy that I kind of wanted to say it first in case anybody else jumped on that bandwagon. But yeah, so anyways, that's mine. But like I said, I can bring in a few others that if they don't come up later that I've thought about.
Have them in the honorable mentions.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I know Josh's, so I know Josh's isn't included in any of mine. But yeah, I don't know your guys's. So I think that's it for me for right now. Anyways.
Well, I guess then if you already talked about mine, I might as well say mine. But what's it called? It's mostly because I was having problems trying to come up with one. Anyway, because there's certain ones where I'm sure that probably if I'm watching a movie, then I'll think about it later. But the main one that I was thinking of was mostly because I was going through the movies that I had. And of course, Labyrinth was one of them with Jennifer Connelly or whatever in it. So then I was like, oh, okay. So and then I could explain it. And I was trying to look through most of her movies. And I was like, oh, so Requiem for a Dream. I think this makes sense. Total sense for it.
All right. I'm waiting for this. Like,
but what's it called? I was thinking maybe because how I think they are on hooked on heroin or meth. I don't remember which one. Of course, I say both heroin. But what's it called? I think they're hooked on heroin though, and like it's just explaining like all of them are in shitty circumstances, kind of thing. Like they have high goals, but then they're like letting the drugs get to them, and then. Well, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, they're all like kind of messed up. So I was thinking that the whole basis of Labyrinth was in her head when she's like overdosing from heroin. I think that's how it was in the movie, or at least one of the fever dreams that she was having in the movie is like what how all of the Labyrinth takes place. So it makes sense how like David Bowie's character comes in and takes the goblin baby away and stuff like that because you're just in your mind and it's just making up like everything as you're coming up with it. So it makes sense like how all the weird shit that happens in Labyrinth, it just kind of makes sense.
So like Labyrinth is like a weird, trippy flashback in her head.
Yeah, like she's hallucinating in her head, like she's passed out or whatever, and she's hallucinating, and this is like her like coping mechanism, kind of like whenever she's like having trouble, I guess. So it's like her dreaming all this shit, and then like whenever she comes back, she's like, if she comes back. Like she comes back and then she's like, "Oh shit, I had the weirdest dream," kind of like Wizard of Oz, kind of like where, kind of
the like waking world is way
fucked
up.
Like because like how Wizard of Oz was, how like where you don't know for it's up to your interpretation. If like her going to Oz was kind of like, I think that's what I took out of it was kind of was giving you the option to find out if this was in her head. Or if she dreamt it all, they kind of like left it open for interpretation that way, I think. So I think the same way could be done with these movies.
Yeah.
I mean, so ridiculous, but still.
Well, all right. I guess, Joe, you want to go ahead and go?
Yeah, mine's. I really racked my brain. I'm going to be honest with you. The first one I was going to go with was trying to link Stir of Echoes because it dealt with evil spirits and R.I.P.D. together in the same universe, but I wasn't really happy with that. So mine is actually linking two animated movies to the same universe, and that's only because and these are two animated series based on shows. So of course the history of the shows as well, and they both star Peter Cullen. Obviously, the first one is Transformers the movie. 1986, and GoBot's Battle of the Rock Lords, also from 1986. The Peter Cullen, as you know, is Optimus Prime, and in the Battle of the Rock Lords, he is actually three characters: Enter, Tombstone, and Stones. And so, getting everything together to kind of build the world, as you know, both series took place in the early.
Hold on, Joe. There's a weird audio issue. There's like click clacking and stuff.
Is somebody messing with something?
I have no idea. It's not me.
Sound like someone eating.
I have no idea. I mean, I was opening something, so that could have been what it was.
That's what it sounded like.
Yep. All right, Joe. Now that that's cleared up, go ahead and start again.
So, like I said, I wish I really racked my brain trying to think of two movies that I could link together. But so I did the Battle of the Rock Lords from the GoBots and Transformers the movie. So they both, like I said, Peter Cullen, Optimus Prime, and then he was three voices in not only in the show GoBots, but Peter Cullen also was in the movie Battle of the Rock Lords. he wasn't leader one, obviously. But some backstory about the GoBots that a lot of people don't know about, and this is how I'm kind of linking the worlds together, because they both were on Earth between 1984 and 85. At least that's when the series ran from Challenge of the GoBots. As we know, the Transformers ran a little bit longer, ran longer, and then of course in Japan it actually continued on past what we got here in the States. And then of course 1986 we Transformers the movie, and then the GoBots movie. Well, the backstory of the GoBots is 1,000 years ago on the planet Gobotron, there lived a race of human-like organic beings, whereas that referred to as Go beings. Yeah, this they didn't really do a good job of name creation for GoBots. Civil War erupted on the planet where the power-hungry terrorist group known as the Renegades, as you know, with Sidekill and stuff like that, led a madman dubbed the Master Renegade who waged war against the peaceful Guardians, which is Leader One and his people. So anyway, there's a creator called the Last Engineer that saved the people of Gobotron, and he basically replaced the parts of the humanoids with robotic parts, and then they got the ability to transform. Well, how I'm linking these universes together is that the Last Engineer is a Quintesson. And I don't know who else besides you, Steven, is familiar with the Quintessons, but as you know, the Quintessons created the Transformers. And so I'm linking the two universes together by saying that the GoBots were created by a Quintesson who was trying to save the people on the planet that he lived. He considered them his people. Maybe most of the Quintessons that you meet are evil. This one maybe wasn't evil, and he had a kind heart, as much as a Quintesson could have a kind heart, and so he wanted to save his people, so he basically made them Transformers. But they obviously weren't Transformers because the Transformers are completely cybernetic beings, whereas the GoBots are part man, part machine, or in this case, part Go beings. The reason that you never really see the Transformers interact with the GoBots is kind of like humans, how we kind of we'll lump people in the groups. So maybe they saw the Guardians and the Renegades, but they thought they were the Autobots and Decepticons, and so they never really put that there are two different sets of robot beings at Earth on the same time. And the GoBots in my history, which kind of links the movies together, the GoBots eventually leave Earth to go rebuild Gobotron, which is what leads us to the Battle of the Rock Lords, which is about Leader One and the crew going back to rebuild Gobotron, and they discover the Rock Lords, which are transforming rocks. And so that's kind of how I linked them together. It's just biased on the parts of the humans in the 80s Earth, not really differentiating the two, Renegades, Decepticons, Guardians, Autobots, and then the GoBots weren't on Earth as long as the Transformers, whereas you know in the Transformers, the movie, the Transformers stayed on Earth. They also recolonized Cybertron, and so they had a base of operations on Earth and stuff like that. So the people are more familiar with the Transformers. And that's kind of how I build the worlds together. And like I said before we started, I wasn't super proud of this, but I thought it was an interesting concept, especially now that Hasbro owns both lines. They own the GoBots and they own the Transformers, so it also fits that way too when it comes to toys.
All right. I think I went a little overboard in my connecting these two universes, but my two are I'm connecting Demolition Man to Judge Dredd. And I wrote it all down because it's a very convoluted thing. But at the end of Demolition Man, with the cryo prison destroyed and the scraps working together with the people of San Angeles, everything was okay for a time. After a while, the citizens of San Angeles and surrounding cities begin to realize that the scraps, who have lived underground at this point with no laws, aren't really assimilating to their way of life. So construction begins on a massive city meant to house them because they don't want to house them underground and have them living beneath them again. So after a few years, the massive structure is complete, and a treaty of sorts between the people of San Angeles and the surrounding cities, and this new mega city is reached. Traffic between the two cities is possible, but the scraps would have to follow the laws of the outside world in order to be allowed there. But no requirement was allowed or for the people of San Angeles to go to the mega city because there were no laws in the mega city. And with a technological gap between the surrounding cities and this new mega city, the scraps didn't see a need for that technology. So, like, cars weren't a thing and a whole bunch of stuff because everything was self-contained. Given the reintroduction of intercourse from John Spartan to the people of San Angeles, there was a population boom. But that was quickly outpaced by the scraps, who never stopped doing it. At least 2 other megacities sprung up over the next decade, and undesirables from the areas outside were placed there to keep them out of the general population. So they essentially became like prisons. In Megacity 1, the rapid population expansion made having no laws untenable. So Edgar Friendly decided laws needed to be made, but he didn't trust the San Angeles Police Department to do them fairly. But he knew John Spartan knew the laws before San Angeles existed, so he enlisted his help. And so John Spartan, Lenina Huxley, and their 2 children moved to Megacity 1. In the next few years, John Spartan became known as the first judge, since he not only created the laws, but also a way to enforce them. After a couple decades, there was another great earthquake like the one in 2010, followed by other strange weather phenomena, and the people outside Megacity 1 tried to flee to Megacity 1, but there were so many that they weren't able to get them all inside. Within the next 20 years, the people left outside Megacity 1 had used what technology was left to lay siege to the gates, and the new judges, including John Spartan, geared up with Mark I lawgivers, a firearm created by John Spartan, to break the siege, but in doing so, John Spartan was wounded. Because he knew that there were other lawless people who were outside the gates that would just lay siege to the megacity again, he said farewell to his wife Lenina and their 2 children and went on what would soon be known as the Long Walk, bringing law to the now lawless people of the cursed earth. Without the direction of John Spartan, the judges became more authoritarian and soon became judge, jury, and executioner. And in an experiment to create the perfect judge known as the Janus Project, based on a god who could see both the past and the future, the judges used the DNA of the first judge, John Spartan, to create a set of twin clones, one being Judge Dredd and the other being Rico. But it is unclear whether or not other DNA samples, to include possibly Simon Phoenix and other criminals, were used in his creation.
Well, geez, that was a huge explanation for that.
I told you I had to.
I mean, it makes sense in a way, though.
I know, I'm a dork.
I think you overthought, I think you thought of it way more than all 3 of us did.
It doesn't help that I gave you guys 2 weeks and I thought about
So do you want to hear my other thoughts?
Your honorable mentions? And anybody, go ahead and throw any mini ones in.
So my first one is Daredevil and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so let me preface. Let me preface this. So if you recall, the mysterious ooze that transformed the turtles into mutants was the focal point for how the Ninja Turtles became what they were. The exact same ooze is actually what transformed Matt Murdock into Daredevil in the comic books. In fact, it happens at the exact same time. So when Murdock's saving the blind man from being hit by the truck, a radioactive substance flies off the vehicle and gets into his eyes. That same substance then proceeds to drip down the sewer drain and onto a group of turtles. So the other part include, if you think about other pieces that are in Daredevil, the Foot Clan is an offshoot of the ninja group The Hand in Daredevil, and Splinter's name is a pun of Daredevil's teacher Stick. I don't know. That's what I think, anyways. Because splinters can come from sticks. But, anyways, that's my that was my other thought in terms of stuff that tied. But I didn't pick that one because there technically wasn't a lead actor tie.
Yeah, I figured.
Does anybody have any other ones? Because I literally have like 4 or 5 of them that I thought.
Well, I think the main one, but it's not done by the lead actor thing. It's mostly all the Disney movies connecting to it, or at least the animated films are all interconnected, like in the same universe and stuff. That's the main one, but that's without like lead actors and stuff. I'm sure there's some where they have the same actors in it, but not lead actors.
Yeah.
The only other one I came up with was, like I said, Stir of Echoes and R.I.P.D. They both contain Kevin Bacon, the main character in Stir of Echoes, and he's also the villain in R.I.P.D. And basically, his character in Stir of Echoes was getting a look into the spiritual world, and R.I.P.D. is like that other side of that world. That's kind of where I was going with that one, but I just couldn't really narrow anything down. But I've been trying to think of the thing I came up with was the GoBots and the Transformers, just because they're similar. They both have Peter Cullen. Technically, you could also make a case for Peter Cullen in Voltron, since Peter Cullen was in every episode of the Voltron, kind of.
Okay, another one that I have. If you guys want to hear it. Spy Kids and Machete.
Uh-huh.
Now, I know it sounds funny because one's a family-friendly movie and the other one's a really violent movie. But for one, both were directed by the same guy. And Danny Trejo was in both. And Machete was actually in both movies. So, Danny Trejo, he was Antonio Banderas's brother, and he's the same guy. So, technically, they're in the same universe, but I don't know if a lot of people picked up on that.
So, what are you thinking? Like, oh, never
well,
mind.
I'm
thinking about a different movie.
Yeah, Antonio Banderas, was in Spy Kids, but Danny Trejo was his brother in Spy Kids, but it's the same character in Machete. So it's Isidore Cortez, which is Machete in Machete. But the interesting part is, in Machete Kills, Antonio Banderas is his nemesis in that movie. So it's that's where it kind of is a little screwy, but anyways. But
or you could do Machete and then From Dusk Till Dawn, because it's all the same. It's the same character, right? Like, you could explain it like Machete's been going through this whole time, and then the vampires took over and then turned him into a vampire. So that's why it explains why Danny Trejo is one of the vampires in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, like I said, they never say his name in that, so it's possible. And I mean, as it could be why he looks a lot younger from Dusk Till Dawn, since it was like made 15 years before.
Yep.
But all right. Does anybody have anything else to contribute for that, or should we move on to the second part of this here podcast?
I think we're good because the other ones I have weren't as readily known.
Weren't
So
all that great. Okay. All right. And for the second part of the podcast, anybody who already knows the podcast will know this, but I personally believe that that any movie can be made greater if you just add bacon. What I mean by that is the actor Kevin Bacon is pretty great, and he's been in a lot of movies, but he hasn't been in all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a regular baconless movie, add just enough Kevin Bacon to where it seems awesome, and then I'm going to take the synopsis of that movie, read it to my friends here, and see if they can figure out what the name of the new movie is. Here we go. Phil McCormick is a small-town truck driver living with an orangutan named Ariel. During their travels, Phil earns money by finding local dancers and having the townspeople bet on dance contests with Ariel.
Oh my god.
Who is a surprisingly amazing dancer. That all changes when the pair enters the town of Beaumont, Utah, a town that has banned dancing. Throughout the course of the film, the duo slowly breaks down the barriers between the parents and their children, helps the town to reintroduce dancing, finally allows the kids to have a prom, and then leaves to find their next dance contest. What is the name of this movie?
Any which way
Every
but
which way
Footloose.
but Footloose.
Yes.
As soon as I heard the starting to do the dancing with the Footloose synopsis, I was like, okay, that's exactly what it is.
As soon as you said Phil McCormick is a truck driver with an orangutan, I'm like, okay, I know where he's going with this.
Yeah, I think the orangutan gave it away, but still
Dude,
funny.
I don't care. I have fun doing these. So like I could do these all day. It's just they're not long enough to make an entire podcast based around. But yeah, so there's our little taste of bacon. That sounds weird.
That's a
Kevin
concert
Bacon the
series.
orangutan?
It's the Taste of Bacon series.
did you change his name?
Huh? Yeah, I made Phil McCormick, which is the main character from Any Which Way But Loose, and the main character from Footloose.
Yeah, that's why I was
Smacked
like, because
together.
Phil Beto was his name, wasn't it? And Every Which Way But Loose.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
Which was funny that you mentioned Footloose, because my original plan, because of Kevin Bacon, staying with the Kevin Bacon theme, I was going to find a way to link Friday the 13th, since he was one of the main characters in that, to Footloose. And I was going to say, I needed to do some research, because it's been a long time since I've seen both movies. At least a couple years on Friday the 13th, and God, it was probably the 90s since the last time I watched Footloose. But I couldn't remember how long the town had been without dancing, since the pastor was his daughter that died in a car accident or something.
Yeah.
And so I was going to say that his daughter dying and the kids getting slaughtered at Camp Crystal Lake in the news was what finally drove him over the edge to like ban dancing in the town. And then, you know, Kevin Bacon shows up in his orangutan and changes everything. That was actually one of my first ones.
Gotta punch dance your rage out.
Had been danceless. Yeah, I think the town had been danceless for like a long time, so the timelines wouldn't match up with the maybe with the original murders at Camp Crystal Lake with Jason Voorhees dying in the pond, but not with the kids being massacred. And
Yeah.
the fact that Footloose takes place in the Midwest, and then New Jersey is actually where the first several Friday the 13th take place.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was. I don't know why I got on the subject of this. I think it's probably because you're talking about Friday the 13th. This was the one thing that I was thinking of beforehand. Was but before the lead actor part was if all the horror movies were in a darkest timeline of Earth, where all the places where all the murders happen, like talking about Slumber Party Massacre and all of them, were in the same area, like all the same Earth instead of like whatever. So like it was commonplace.
So Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like where
Yeah,
it's
I was
like
just about to say,
commonplace
yeah,
where
Cabin in the
Michael Myers is in one town and then it's Freddy, and it would explain why Freddy versus Jason happened. Like,
Because it already
yeah,
existed
because
in the same universe.
they probably heard with like knew of each other or whatever.
Well,
Probably not
Freddy could
Jason.
exist in any of
Jason's
them.
probably just like
I mean,
fuck it, but-
that's the nice
Yeah.
part about his gimmick is the fact that he's in dreams, so he can be in any universe he wants to. I mean, that's what was kind of brilliant about that character was he could do whatever he wants. I mean, it's
and that's I think that's mainly like through the fear because you're like at your weakest because you're in a dream, and then he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" But yeah, that's why I thought that it was like. That's why I thought that was my best one. Was like, yeah, like what if they just like happened to walk into each other and be like, "Hey, what's up?" Even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy. I mean, that would suck to be on that Earth, though. You would go to one town, and then Michael Myers is there, and then another one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy, or Leatherface is there.
Well, they were all in different locations. Like Springwood is Freddy, New Jersey, Camp Crystal Lake is Jason, Haddonfield, Illinois, I think is where Michael Myers is. Texas Chainsaw is actually honestly in Texas. Norman Bates is in California.
Yeah, that's why I say like it could be like the darkest timeline version, where every city on Earth is pretty, or like pretty much every place has like a serial killer.
And then you have
on
Dexter trying to kill them all.
Yeah,
yeah,
that would be crazy. But all right, now that we've hit that point and we're hitting a point where I have other ideas spinning, I think we should end it there. Any of our listeners out there, you can follow us on our Facebook page at The Heart of Geek. Our Twitter, is it at The Heart of Geek? I can't remember.
At The Heart of
Okay, and our Instagram, same thing. We have 2 YouTube channels, one for adults who like the swear words and one for kids who don't. And I think that's pretty much it.
So, and our Twitch channel and our Mixer channel.
Right, say goodbye to the audience.
But
yeah, we're on Twitch and Mixer because we're weird. But yeah, say goodbye
Peace
to
out.
the audience, guys.
Bye.
Bye, audience.
Bye,
Bye, audience.
Peace out.
At the same time.
I said bye, bye, audience. Call me sometime. Hey, Raid Shadow Legends, hit me up, baby. I got you.
This isn't an ad.
Hey, Squarespace.
But it could be an ad.
It could be an ad.
All right, bye.
Hey.
Hey, VPNs, hit me up, baby.
NordVPN.